What was the incident at your high school? When I was a sophomore, it was known around campus that a specific set of lockers that was between the campus and football field was off limits, because over summer break some kids blew the door off a locker with a dry ice gum in a Propel bottle, shrapnel dart. 2 years into my relationship with my, now, husband, he starts telling a very familiar story and I realized he was the fabled dry ice bomber my school had been talking about for the past 7 years. In an effort to crack down on grinding at mixers and dances, the principal did a school-wide SAR about it. Apparently a common excuse students gave to avoid getting in trouble for it was that, while they may have heard that grinding was against the rules, they didn't know what grinding meant. So he described it, in detail. Then at the end of the SAR, he said that any student who still did not understand could come down to his office where he would use dolls. He held them up so we could see, to demonstrate the prohibited behavior. Hundreds of students lined up outside his office. The hallway was utterly impassable for the rest of the day, and students refused to be shepherded to class by staff because the principal said he would show us how to grind. Teachers joined the line. His idea to fix this was to announce that he was cancelling the in-office offer, and instead, we could attend an optional auditorium demonstration after school that day. The auditorium had never been more full. After school groups postponed activities, even the teachers in charge of them just sort of got out of the way and let it happen. Kids texted their parents and told them they had to attend and would need to be picked up later. Buses were delayed, screwing up the busing schedule. It was a train wreck. He did the demo. He got fired like almost immediately. We later found out that he was very unpopular among the staff at that school, and a lot of teachers sort of went out of their way to help the train wreck pile up as badly as possible. He really has no one to blame but himself though. I was at my grad ceremony and this one guy, while walking the stage, pulled his pants down and mooned everyone. Not exactly sure what happened to him but I heard he got suspended and got his diploma taken away from him. Someone did this a year before me. He had cut out holes in each bid cheek and mooned when his name was called. He had painted the year on his butt. Suffice to say, my school was really strict when my class graduated. We had a strict dress code and the sheriff's department patted us all down and checked all of our clothes. Someone drew a 25-foot big dig and gonads on 2 of the bathroom walls, jizzing across the remaining 2 walls. It was found first thing on a Monday morning and was extremely detailed. Someone spent hours on this, meaning they snuck into the school over the weekend for their art project. When I was a freshman, 2004-ish, 2 senior boys snuck into the school overnight and painted giant, coming big digs in every mouth of our mascot image. Like every sign outside, every hallway, the gym, the cafeteria, anywhere there was a panther image, just sucking giant big digs. They also painted a big dig on the assistant principal's car. This was way before that Netflix movie came out, but it revived quite the memories on Facebook. They were ultimately suspended and couldn't walk at graduation. This was about a year or 2 after I graduated, but the cool teacher got busted for having sexual relationships with 2 of his 16-year-old students. At least one of the girls was a player on the school softball team, which he coached. He was married with 2 small children at home, and his wife gave him the boot after that, as did the State Board of Education. I don't remember if he served any time in jail, but he did have to register as a 6 offender and will never be allowed to teach again. I think he's a real estate agent now. At least he had to register. This was well after I graduated, but I knew a middle school teacher that was accused by 3 different students of sexual harassment. One stated he inappropriately touched her. He did get fired after parents got involved, but in order to sweep everything under the rug a deal was made and no charges were pressed. I'm not sure how the parents of the girls didn't throw a fit, or how they were ultimately silenced. Maybe they got a settlement from the state or something. It never even made local news. Either way, he stopped teaching, went on to open up a private tutoring business for children. and now gets to be unsupervised with children of all ages all day. It makes me sick. Teacher, female, got fired and went to court for sending a nude to a student, male. The thing was though, it was the student who took her phone, found the nude in her gallery, and then sent it to himself. His mom found out about it somehow. In freshman year, 2 female teachers were caught half naked and making out in an upstairs classroom by a janitor while a school play was happening downstairs in the auditorium. Both who are married with kids were fired. They then sued and got their jobs back 4 years later. Perfectly timed their return as they waited for all the kids who were at the school at that time to graduate so no one would remember or talk about it. And within the next handful of years, a few more teachers in the same school were caught having inappropriate relationships with some of the students. The school has been nicknamed Horn Dog High by the media for obvious reasons. This school is also known for its famous alumni: Chris Rock, Judge Judy, Bernie Sanders, Chuck Schumer, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and Drew Dice Clay, among others. When I was a freshman in high school, we went into lockdown for an active shooter. There were cop cars swarming the building and helicopters flying above the school. It was a whole ordeal, and every student and teacher were obviously scared. There was a rumor floating around that the shooter was in the science hallway, which was the hallway I was in at the time. Due to all the rumors circulating, one science teacher decided to make a Molotov cocktail to throw at the potential shooter, and another science teacher broke one of his golf clubs he had stashed away in half for self-defense. It turned out the shooters were people with paintball guns, and both of these science teachers were fired the next day. It was always talked about the remaining years I spent at the high school about how terribly unfair it was for firing teachers that were, in theory, trying to defend their students from a potential shooter. Someone did a sheet on the seat of a toilet and few guys got a brush and brushed it out into corridor. Headmaster came along and thought it was a fake joke turd and picked it up. Every boy aged 16 and up was called to an assembly where the headmaster said, "Today I picked up human excrement with my bare hand." A few boys couldn't handle it and burst out laughing. They never found the phantom shitter. This was one the light of the incidents at my school. Inspired by the movie The Basketball Diaries, the center of our basketball team made it a habit to masturbate on the roof of the gym. Unfortunately for him, he got caught in a big way by some other students and a coach. Long story short, he was given the nickname Stroke, and the cheerleaders even made a special cheer just for him that they'd break out when he got the ball. How did they take it? 'Cause that's hilarious. He was constantly embarrassed, but he owned it and never gave anyone crap who made a joke. By the end of the season it ran its course and we all moved on to other people's humiliations. But the name Stroke never went away. We just stopped thinking about the origin. We had several, but my favorite is when a theater kid named Roger started selling homemade sandwiches at school. They were delicious and cheap and put the cafeteria food to absolute shame. His business was booming and it made the cafeteria ladies super angry. They took the issue to administration and Roger was banned from selling his sandwiches. Roger was determined to right this wrong and did it in the only way a theater kid knows how, by writing a one-act play with the cafeteria ladies as the antagonists and an underdog hero battling against them. The play was even better than his sandwiches and was a smash hit at school. He ended up taking it to area, and I believe he even made it to the state one-act play contest with it. He also continued to sell his sandwiches, but simply changed to an ordering system. You ordered a sandwich the day before and picked it up just off campus boundaries in the morning. Technically not a school issue anymore that way. Nowadays he lives in LA and works as a production assistant. I like to think that the lunch ladies fueled his career by giving him the ammo for his early success. The biggest incident that I was aware of at my school was when some guy was caught jerking AWF in the bathroom and someone filmed it. It's been a while, but I think the guy filming got either suspended or expelled. I didn't really ask around, but I would be shocked if they didn't get in trouble. As for the guy who was caught jerking it, he still stuck around even though the whole school knew about what he did. My friend had a class with him and from what he said the guy seemed nice. Still got to wonder why he felt the urge to do that in the school bathroom and why the other guy filmed it. Edit. Thanks for the upvotes. This might be a winner. A 14-year-old girl knocked on the door to interrupt a pregnant teacher in the middle of a class lesson and proceeds to wail on her skull with a hammer. After a few hits, one of my friends, 16-year-old male, grabbed the 14-year-old girl by the back of the shirt and swung her full force into a cinder block wall and she just crumbled. I mean, he just destroyed her. Probably the best free hit you could hope for. Then plenty of students made sure she didn't still have her hammer or get up. My friend got proclaimed a hero on the news and an upstate college gave him a full scholarship for a free ride at their school. The teacher had a fractured skull with bone chips that had to be removed from her brain. Her husband at the time, a teacher down the hall, had to be restrained by colleagues to keep him from murdering the 14-year-old. The teacher fully recovered and gave birth to a healthy boy, and I just looked her up on Facebook while thinking about this, and her son just graduated college last year. The motive for the attack: the teacher was calling the girl's parents for academic performance and truancy. The parents said if she kept getting in trouble she wouldn't be able to go to the prom. She was asked by a senior. The teacher called and she got in trouble. She came into school the next day with a hammer and sock full of batteries and told her friends she was going to kill that teacher. They told her that she was crazy and she just walked away and said something like, "You think I'm just talking shit? You'll see." I remember a year later a friend of the girl came up to a group of us in art class with a petition to get her friend released from juvie, and I tore her a new asshole very loudly, basically saying that was lucky she wasn't in prison for decades and that she should stop walking around getting people to support that monster. When I was a junior, one of my classmates died. I came in Monday morning and everyone was sullen and some were crying, which was way out of the norm since I went to an all-boys high school. I had no idea what was going on, so I asked my best friend. He told me Brooks had died over the weekend. Apparently there was a big party. Why, I had no idea what happened. My parents didn't let me go to parties until late in my senior year, and he had slipped and fallen down the stairs while going to a bathroom that was kind of out of the way. It was a big house. I went to private school, so lots of rich kids. When they found him, he was unconscious, but being naive teenagers, everyone assumed he had just passed out from being drunk. They put him on a couch to sleep it off, and continued about their evenings. He wouldn't wake up the next morning, so they called 911, and he was pronounced brain deaf at the hospital shortly thereafter. He was taken off life support 2 days later. Varsity football team. The coaching staff and principal were all arrested during the middle of school. Cops went room to room getting these guys. At least one linebacker tried to bum rush a cop and failed. Turns out the team was raping freshmen and the adults covered it up. A guy our freshman year went off the deep end over a girl and ruined his life. I'd known him from middle school and his parents were super well off and he had a stable home life growing up in the country club. He was a decent looking dude and decently funny, but not some athlete. He was a really thin kid and average height, maybe 125 pounds. Him and the girl dated most of the school year, but sometime in the spring she broke up with him and started seeing one of the football players. This new dude was a 6 feet 4 inches 280 pound beast. They argued a few times about it in the main school courtyard, but the smaller dude knew he'd be killed if he ever tried to seriously fight the new guy. Things seemed calm for like a week until the skinny kid stole his dad's gum and brought it to school. By some random chance the school RSO police officer happened to have been walking by and saw the kid draw the weapon out of his backpack. The RSO sprinted across the courtyard and tackled the kid before he could get a shot off. Obviously the kid was expelled. I don't know if he ever finished high school or was just a complete dropout after that. I ended up seeing him just before the pandemic in really sad shape. At this point our class had graduated over a decade earlier. He'd gotten hooked on either opiates or benzos and was ducked up out of his mind on them in a bar. All his words were slurred. He could stand up but had a certain sway that most opiate users have. Dude didn't look like he'd really been taking care of himself either. It was sad to see someone who was probably going to have the world handed to him throw all of it away like that over a freshman year relationship. Apparently there was some gang beef between my high school and another high school. Someone from our high school slept with someone's girlfriend from the opposing gang. When the opposing gang heard about this, they threatened to do a drive-by shooting on our school. Our administration heard about this quick, so all the classes that were held in temporary buildings outside had to be held inside the school. No one was allowed to leave the building. Nothing ever happened though. We had two major incidents while I was in high school. First, I was in homeroom freshman year when the superintendent, principal, and 4 cops came to my homeroom and pulled a kid out. Turns out he had made a threat to shoot up the school and they ended up finding guns and ammo in his house under his bed. Crazy to think he could have come in that day shooting. The second one was we had a gun threat written on the wall of one of the bathrooms. We evacuated and they did not find anything. It was right at the start of the week of the state exams. Well, the administration decided to close all of the bathrooms except for one, and it was one student at a time. The school had 2,000 students. This went on for a week until several kids just peed on the wall in the hallway right in front of the principal, and they tried to suspend him, but his parents threatened to call the news and file a lawsuit, and suddenly all bathrooms were open again. The third was 4 kids tried to beat up another kid. The kid they tried to beat up did MMA. The 4 kids did not realize it. One ended up with a broken arm and another was knocked out cold. The other 2 then ran. The 4 kids got a 10-day suspension and the kid they attacked got a 1-day suspension. Stupid zero tolerance rules. I went to a small, public school in rural Australia. Obviously, there was your standard pregnancies, deaths and mayhem, but this one is always my favorite. There was a teacher in my high school who we all really disliked and we called Voldemort, due to the both physical and personality similarities. Dude wasn't a mass murderer or racist, but he was still a total ducking asshole. I honestly can't even remember his real name. To everyone he was just Voldemort. He also really hated being called this, and gave anyone who called him this to his face automatic detention, including myself. In the class below me, I was in year 8 at the time, so year 7s, had PE with Voldemort. This girl Chloe had just been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and was low, so she had a can of Coke with her. She was quiet, and pretty well behaved. She started dating the class bad boy, so to speak, called Otis, who is still a friend to this day. Anyways, Voldemort came up to her and demanded why she was drinking something sugary during class and in the gym. She explained to him her condition and why she needed it, and was confused because every single teacher had been informed. Voldemort said he'd heard, but he didn't believe it, and took away her Coke. Well, her boyfriend didn't like that, and asked him what the duck he was doing. It then devolved into a shouting match between the two of them in front of the entire class, whilst she's starting to get pretty unwell. There's multiple accounts of what Voldemort's breaking point was. According to Otis himself, it was when he told him to get ducked and also get a nose job. They were in the gym doing hockey that day, and Voldemort ended up chasing Otis, a 13-year-old, around the gym with a ducking hockey stick, trying to hit him. This is again, in front of the entire class. And phones have just become a thing, so of course, every single student filmed it on their sheet flip phones. Of course, during this, Chloe faints. All the screaming attracts the principal, who walks in on a teacher literally chasing around and trying to heal a student, whilst another is unconscious. Suffice to say, he was fired that very same day. All the phones were confiscated so the teachers could delete the footage. Chloe was fine, and Otis became an outright legend for finally getting Voldemort to expose himself as the utter asshole that he truly was. Edit, spelling edit too. Thanks for the gold, stranger. Some upstanding football players stole our rival's mascot, a living bulldog, and staked it to the ground on our school's field. They forced it to defend itself from another dog, and it barely survived. One of the coaches helped. Nothing happened to them, and later, they graduated to beating a homeless man to death. Good dudes. So this isn't my story, but my HS math teacher's. Some details missing since I'm remembering his story from like 8 years ago. Way back when he was in HS in Las Vegas. There were these 4 popular girls that had a fancy car and would leave campus every day to do something and would constantly speed to get back to class, taking a pretty sharp turn into the school parking lot. One day the ground was slick, rain or ice, and they slid in that turn and crashed into a light pole. What some of you may not know is light poles are designed to fall over when someone crashes into them, kinda like the crumpling mechanics of modern cars. These girls were going so fast that the car was cut in half by the light pole, and at least one died, and another's leg was amputated during the crash by either the pole or a piece of the car. This happened after I graduated. A bunch of students were selling tissues as part of a fundraiser. They were told that all proceeds would go to the burns unit at the children's hospital. One of the students found out that as part of the fundraising agreement, the school was allowed to keep part of the funds. The student didn't think this was right and wrote to the principal asking that the school's share be donated as well. She also had a meeting with the principal, and when this was unsuccessful, she posted a picture of her original, handwritten, letter to her cohort's Facebook group. As can be expected in Facebook conversations among that age demographic, there were a lot of shitposts in the replies, including one meme that vaguely compared the principal to Hitler. Someone printed it out and stuck it on a tree. The admin staff saw and they brought the original student in for questioning. She had to open her Facebook profile in front of the principal and associate principal, and everyone who commented, no matter how mild, was brought in for a verbal smackdown. Then came the suspensions. The person who made the poster was suspended, as was another student who tried to cover for him. The original student also got suspended for inciting anarchy. I think a 4th student was suspended for running down the corridor saying that he was going to tear the principal a new one. The students went to the media about the suspensions, but of course the media interviewed the school and wrote articles that sided with the school. It wasn't until years later that the truth came out. The principal and associate principal were suspended for creating a toxic workplace at the school. Apparently they were bullying staff, and then a bunch of other articles came out about the school, including one where the original student was interviewed.